Okay, welcome to today's webinar, everyone.
Welcome, everybody. Indeed, my name is Tim Sink. I'm president of the Greater Concord Chamber of Commerce, and we're delighted that you are joining us today for this very timely topic. We're talking about Main Street Relief Fund 2.0. So this is an opportunity to access additional funds geared primarily for small businesses. So we are very fortunate to have two people from New Hampshire SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, with us to walk you through some of the do's and don'ts. We have with us Julie Gosner and Chuck Gilboy. So they will talk about this program, and I encourage you to take full advantage of this because this is a resource that is available for you, and we want you to do well and thrive in your business environment. At this point, I'm going to ask my colleague Emily Marsh to walk you through a couple just meeting logistics so that we're on the same page, you know how to ask a question, things like that. So Emily, if you would.
All right, thank you, Tim. So today you guys are here during this live webinar, which means you can submit questions to our panelists today. To do that, you're gonna move your mouse or tap your screen if you're on mobile, and you should see a button called Q&A pop up. From there, you can simply type in your question and submit it. Your questions will only be seen by your presenters, me and Chamber President Tim Sink. They are anonymous to all of the other attendees. So please feel free to ask lots of questions. We'll do our very best to answer them towards the end of the program, most likely as we get through the main topics first. So again, to submit questions, move your mouse, tap your screen, click on Q&A, and simply type it in. We're also recording today's webinar, and we'll send you a copy of that so you can refer to it later on. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Julie from New Hampshire SBDC. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Julie Glossner, the Merrimack Valley Regional Director of the New Hampshire Small Business Development Center. And I want to thank you and thank the Chamber for partnering with us to put this webinar on for you. Chuck, will you go to the next slide? So I want to tell you a little bit about the New Hampshire Small Business Development Center, or SBDC, which is a mouthful. We do one-on-one business advising for at no cost. It's confidential. We just ask that you sign up as a client and you go to our website, nhsbdc.org, and you can also go, we have online classes, so they're free and you can take them anytime, but we also provide a lot of different webinars as well. So you could go to our website, sign up for our newsletter, and get more information about our services. But we are able to provide our services at no cost because we are get funding from the United States Small Business Administration, and we also get money locally from the state, from Business and Economic Affairs Office, and we are an outreach program through the Paul College. So our funds come in, and the university system is our host, and we have an office there, but we have offices throughout the state. So no matter where you're located, you can connect with the business advisor. I believe we have 14 business advisors right now. So I just want to again let you know that we are not employees of the Gopher office. So we, to the best of our ability, will answer questions, but in no way are we experts. And so I will turn it over to Chuck here in just 1 minute. I want to thank Chuck for putting together the slides, and he's our SBDC resident expert on federal and state funds available for small businesses. So if you have questions and would like to connect with him afterwards, please do. And thank you again to Tim Sink and Emily for having us partner with you on this webinar. So, and Chuck is a Merrimack Valley Business Advisor for the SBDC. Thanks. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Thanks for that intro, and thanks to the Chamber for hosting this. We're excited just to be able to reach more people and help businesses. And I think, what I'd emphasize, like Julie said, individualized one-on-one advising is really our bread and butter. So hope this webinar is helpful and informative. I'm going to do my best here to kind of synthesize information that's out there and as well as some answers we've gotten directly from the Go for Office. But encourage you to sign up for individualized advising as well. And we'd be happy to help in any way that we can. So with that being said, I'm going to try to go through quickly here. And like Emily mentioned, we'll answer questions at the end, but want to be respectful of everyone's time because I know I know crazy schedules right now between everything going on. So just to give you kind of the 50,000 foot level, the governor allocated an additional $100 million of the state's CARES Act funding to the Main Street Grant Program under what they're calling the 2.0 version. So that the decision to do that was made in the last couple of weeks. What Main Street 2.0 is designed to do is support businesses that are experiencing COVID-19 business disruptions. And it's really targeted first and foremost to those, first and foremost to those that did not receive any funding through Main Street 2.0 or what was called the GAP program. But it is also available to those who did receive a first round award, but received less than $350,000. To apply, there's a deadline that's coming up, as Tim mentioned, pretty quickly. It's 4 p.m. This Friday, October 30th. So again, my goal here is to get the basic information into your hands. But if you need additional help with the application, please reach out to us, and we're happy to crank through it by end of day Friday. So the way you do it is you go to the state website. There's a link here that I'm sure will be available in the slides. You create a username and password, and then you go through the application, and we'll get into what's needed for the application. But to start with, let's talk about who's eligible. We covered kind of the high level just now, but one, you've got to be a for-profit business with your principal business office in New Hampshire. If folks have questions about what principal business office constitutes, feel free to ask that in the Q&A. You have to have been in operation since at least May 29th, 2019. So now an important caveat here that we got from talking with folks at the Go for Office is that if you, we had a few folks in the situation where they purchased a business after May 29th, 2019, but the business had been in operation for many years prior. If you are in that situation, you are still eligible. You just need the full year 2019 financials from the prior owner, so that they have, the state has the appropriate information on which to base a decision. You have to have typically employed at least one non-owner W-2 employee before COVID-19. So I already saw one question in the Q&A about are business owners who don't have employees eligible? And will there be another round of what was called the self-grant funding, particular to self-employed individuals? The answer as of right now is no, that you need to be a business that has employees in order to qualify for the program. So that's where it stands today. Again, we're not I don't work for the state. So that's, I can kind of just tell you where it's at today. The other eligibility criteria is you cannot be permanently closed or in bankruptcy. So that pretty self-explanatory there. You need to have total 2019 gross receipts of less than $20 million. You need to anticipate a loss in gross receipts from 2019 to 2020 due to COVID-19. This grant is really based on compensating you for the decline in gross receipts or sales related to COVID-19 or just, your general decline in sales. There's no requirement to submit evidence that it's directly related to COVID. But it's based on your top line numbers from what you had last year to what you anticipate at the end of calendar year 2020. So we've had a number of questions from folks. Well, what about my expenses have increased because of COVID? Unfortunately, that's not really taken into account in this grant formula. Again, it's based on that top line number. So you have to have received a total of less than $350,000 from the initial round of the Main Street Relief Fund and or the GAP Fund. And you cannot have received a self-employed livelihood grant. Again, pretty self-explanatory here. As we already covered, you need to have that employee to be eligible. So you would not have gotten the self grant. So here's an additional list of ineligible entities. These entities are ineligible primarily because there have been other relief programs targeted towards them. So nonprofits, agricultural businesses, childcare providers, schools, higher ed, hospitals, or other healthcare providers. So now the other healthcare providers, that's one where there's some, what exactly does that constitute? What I can tell you is that we have reached out about a chiropractic office. So, not necessarily a hospital, it's a chiropractor. And we were told that that person is considered an other healthcare provider and therefore is not qualified for this program. The other ineligible entity is business with affiliates that puts them above 20 million in total receipts. So, franchise owners, things of that nature. So if you have questions or you think you may be subject to an affiliate rule, you may have affiliated businesses, please ask questions in the Q&A, and happy to go over that or answer that in more detail to the best we can. So what are you going to need to apply? Just information to get a hold of. Federal taxpayer ID number, New Hampshire Secretary of State business ID, and your principal business office address. Your actual calendar year 2019 total gross receipts, and actual total gross receipts for the period January 1, 2020 to September 30, 2020. Then you want to have projected calendar year 2020 total gross receipts as of the day of your application, the date of your application. And then you need to keep track of all COVID-19 assistance, grants and or loans received or expected to be received from all sources since March 1, 2020. So that's the information that you want to have. And when you go in to fill out the application, and so that's kind of getting you into the process. Now, the way this is actually going to work once you apply is there's a formula, and it starts with determining what your qualified loss is for the year. So the way that works is 2019 actual calendar year gross receipts minus your 2020 projected calendar year receipts minus, and here's where we get into the other, all other sources of aid, minus a PPP loan that you receive, multiply that by 0.5, so 50% of the value, minus all other COVID aid received or you are projected to receive. So that projected word in there, the impact that has, or what you want to keep in mind is if you are in the process of applying for an economic injury disaster loan, or the city of Manchester has a grant program going on right now for businesses. If any of those funds you expect to receive in 2020, then you need to report those, even if you don't have them, and have them factor into the formula even if you don't have them yet. So once the qualified loss is determined, the way the grant formula is going to work, and again, this is my best account here, or my best representation to you based on what is described in the publicly available FAQ on the Gopher website. It's your qualified loss, which we just defined, times the pro rata percentage minus any other Gopher assistance received equals your grant amount. So let's talk about the pro rata percentage. So that is not going to be determined by the Gopher office until they've received all of the applications by at 4 o'clock Friday. And they've compared, okay, here's the total losses that people are submitting for compared to the 100 million. Now, based on that 100 million that we have available, we are going to give a pro rata percentage of that loss back to all of the business owners who applied. Now, the round one pro rata percentage was 17.1671%. So that's gives you a sense of what it may be this time. Also important to note that the way they've structured this is all first-time applicants, so all businesses that did not receive Main Street Relief Funds or GAP funds need to get at least 17 point, the same number of their loss compensated through this program before anybody who's received additional dollars does. So just keep that in mind. And then if you've already received assistance, keep in mind that you're going to have your qualified loss. You're going to have then you're going to get a pro rata percentage. Then after that, they're going to subtract any other aid you've received to determine your grant amount. So I would say if you received a portion of aid in Main Street Round 1 or through GAP, definitely worth applying. But just set expectations for yourself accordingly in terms of what you may receive. So some other just important things I want to highlight for folks. All state grant awards will be considered taxable income, both at the federal level and at the business profits tax level. So that's important to keep in mind. Any expenses that you pay for with your 2.0 grant can be deducted as expenses, but it is taxable income at both levels. So then I know some of you who may have received round 1 may have gotten some communication from the state about what is called audit recoupment. So the way that's going to work for both round 1 and I presume round 2 will be the same, is that if the sum of all of your COVID-19 assistance, your EIDL loans, your PPP, other grants, your Main Street grant, plus your 2020, your actual year-end revenue for this year is greater than your 2019 revenue, then the state will recoup the difference from your grant amount. Right, the state will ask you to pay that back. So, good, bad news, good news. Bad news is there's a process through which you may have to repay here. The good news is that if you simply have misestimated what your 2020 year-end top line number is going to be by, let's say, $50,000, $20,000. The state's not going to come back to you just based on that misestimation. They're only going to come back to you in this specific instance where you take your 2020 revenue, you add up all your COVID-19 assistance, and that exceeds your 2019 revenue. So keep that in mind. The awards themselves, in terms of how they're supposed to be spent, as I'm sure those of you who are familiar with PPP and EIDL, there was a number of regulations on how you could spend that funding. in the state's case, what they have said, the language is interesting, right? It's a no strings attached award. However, they expect that you will use this money to cover, financial and legal obligations resulting from the losses associated from the COVID-19 pandemic. But there is no tracking as to how you spent the funds. There is no reporting as to how you've spent the funds or record keeping or anything of that nature. So you are eligible to use it for, or you are allowed to use it for any number of things. So final piece here to highlight is that just keep in mind, as has been the case with all of these state grants funds, they are going to publish a map of people who have gotten these grants, and your information will be public. The amount you've received, your business name, your business address. So just for those of you who have privacy concerns, maybe a bit turned off by that, or whatever the case may be, just make sure that you're aware of that as you go into the application process. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and try to open the Q&A here, but this is just the screen here, the Main Street Relief Call Center. That number, you can call it and reach somebody if you have additional questions. Or you need tech help, you need help getting into the system, things of that nature. And then also put up our COVID-19 assistance page through the SBDC, where we've got a ton of helpful info. It's great to follow, and our communications team does a great job updating those. So So that's that piece of it. I'll go ahead and get into the questions here. I have a question in terms of just some tech stuff. In terms of login, if you had a login for 1.0, can you use the same login? I believe so. Yes, the password should be the same. So you should be all set there. That we got a question here on the timeline to be distributed. We don't have any further guidance from the state on that. All I would say is the Main Street Round 1, I believe those were distributed within a few weeks. So that, going by that, I would expect a similar timeline. So that's that piece. And then the question here, a couple other ones. I know I answered this one about questions with no employees, obviously not eligible, unfortunately. And then how do you determine projected income? Again, this is really an estimate that I would just make a good faith estimate based on if you have your P&L year to date, what you see in terms of sales for the next couple months, add those together. And again, I guess kind of the good news is, if you're off by a few $1,000s, the state's not coming back and saying, no. But if you do, if you end up being significantly higher and you end up having your aid and your sales from this year be greater than last year, you will probably face some level of recoupment on the grant. So that's how I'd answer that one. And I saw Julie typed in an answer as well. So thank you, Julie, for that. So let me just go back to the open ones here. To this question here about when are we going to be asked for year-end numbers? Yes, it would be. You do not necessarily have to be a business profits tax filer in order to receive a grant. There will be a process for those who are of the size that they do not have to file business profits tax. But if you are a BPT filer, that you're not, that they will be checking your numbers from those filings. So, so that's what I would say about that.
I think that's what we've got for questions at this point. Again, if you want to submit something, you're going to want to move your mouse, tap your screen, click on Q&A, and then type in your question from there. So I do want to go over some like really quick chamber news, but if you have another question, feel free to submit that as we're talking. So, all right, I'm going to take over the screen for a second.
Oh, okay.
So I want to let you guys know we're holding a virtual networking event on November 10th. If you haven't tried this out before, I definitely recommend you check it out. We put people in small groups so they can unmute themselves and chat. It's a lot of fun. We have door prizes. Our next host is the Capital Center for the Arts, so that's going to be a great event. We also have our Pinnacle Awards event coming up on November 19th. We're honoring some really outstanding businesses, nonprofit, and business leader. So please check out that event. You can attend online or in person. So there's options for you to select how you want to join us. Let's check out the questions again. I don't see anything new at this time, but Julie or Chuck, do either of you want to add anything else, final information before we wrap up?
So I'll add one thing. So obviously, as you're potentially looking at audit issues, part of the thing to consider is that the EIDL loan is part of that formula in terms of the aid you've received. But if you have an EIDL loan, as you know, it's a 30-year loan at 3.75% interest. It's not a grant. So we've had folks ask us, well, what if I pay back the EIDL loan, right? What if I return the EIDL loan prior to year end? Will that then be part of the recoupment formula in terms of 2020 revenue plus aid greater than 2019? What we've been told is no. If you return that and then you have evidence that you've returned it in full, that will not be part of the aid you've received. So that's what we've been told in writing by the Gopher office. I'd say if you're considering doing that, I would say just apply for this round, keep the EIDL loan. Just make sure the amount you may have to pay back, it may be much less than the EIDL loan, right? And those are still very good loan terms. So if you need that working capital, it's just something to consider very carefully, but we have been told it is an option to return that, which creates a little bit of confusion, but that's what we've been told at this point. But I would encourage folks who are in the situation where they're maybe considering stuff like that, to reach out to either us at SBDC or reach out to the state, to DRA, and just work through that. So yeah, if you didn't receive PPP but did get an EIDL loan, the EIDL loan is included, and the EIDL loan is included at 100%. So that you just, if you have it today, you just want to put it in there, and that's that'll be part of the formula to figure out your grant amount.
I just wanted to follow up with what Chuck was just talking about with EIDL. It is 30 years, and right now we don't know how long this is going to last. So people who did get that, it's kind of a good security to have that funds available if you need them. And you know, how much money people are getting sometimes from these grant funds. You know, they're like, well, grant funds are free, you know, generally, you know, you may have to give it back depending on how much you get, but how much you make in this year. But I think it's good to have all options open to you. So having the EIDL and thinking about if this goes, you know, stretches on for a bit, you know, is there going to be a PPP 2.0 as well, or some more business aid coming in the next month or two? So there's a lot up in the air, but having a place to capture or access to money is not a bad thing. And that's what EIDL provides to people. So, you know, potentially in the future, if you needed money, you could tap that loan and use the money that you have. So I know people think, oh, I should give it back, but we are encouraging people, unless they really feel strongly about it, to hold on to that loan after, you know, you don't make your first payment for a year or 10 months. So you don't need to make a decision right away.
Yep. Yep. I'd say if you're in that situation where you're trying to consider that, yeah, please. Yeah, I think, you know, Julie, some very good guidance on that, but yeah, just encourage you to reach out to us as well.
Oh, and one other thing is that the funds from the state for the Main Street 2.0 have to be, they need to spend it or disperse it by the end of December. So obviously they're in a kind of a time crunch to get those funds out to everyone. But with Thanksgiving there and the applications, I mean, we don't know a date, but I wouldn't think that funds will get released before the beginning of December myself. Again, we don't have the answer, but that's just my my own feeling about it.
Well, that kind of speaks to why such a tight turnaround time. The deadline to apply, again, 4 o'clock this Friday. So I would encourage folks to jump on that link and walk through the process. We're at the 1:30 mark. I think that's what we planned on. I just want to thank Chuck and Julie very much for hosting this and providing this great information. Very, very helpful. And I would really encourage folks that are on this call to reach out to the SBDC if you have questions as you go through the application process. They're a wonderful resource. We are partnering with them on a regular basis to provide information to businesses. So, you know, really take advantage. You've got some experts at your fingertips. Anything else, Emily?
I think that's it. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks,
and
everybody.
Bye.